great to be back at home. Got a chance to get back on the right track against the Lions. They're going to be a hungry team looking to get a win, and we've got to be on details all week long. Have a great week of practice and be ready to go Sunday.
Welcome back. Another edition of Enough Said starts right now. My name is Dan Barreiro, joined by Justin Gaard as always, and Lori Fisher, kind of, sort of wearing purple-ish.
Easing into the Purple Friday
We have a little
vibe.
disagreement on what the actual color is.
I
It
think
probably
it's-
is different
I think
for
it's,
everybody, for all the different TV screens out
Hashtag
there.
Enough Said. Tell us what color Lori's dress is tonight.
I think it's a lovely color.
It's a whatever it is. It
Well,
looks
thank
nice.
you.
Yeah, it's a very nice purple. I
Well,
think.
thank you. Well, let's move on. 14-7, that was the final score last weekend when the Vikings lost to Cleveland. They take on Detroit at noon right here on Fox 9 this Sunday. The Lions haven't won a game yet. The Vikings are 1-3. Dan, would you call this a make or break weekend for Coach Zimmer, depending on what happens on Sunday?
Well, I'm not in the group that thinks that Zim's going to be dismissed if they lose the Lions. But if not now, when? If I have the list of injured for the Lions right, they may have as many as 3 starting offensive linemen out. That includes your guy, the center, the Pro Bowler, Frank Ragnar.
Yeah, one of us.
Their top corner has an Achilles. He's out. Their top backup corner is out. Their top sack guy also has an Achilles issue. And one of their top receivers, the guy they want to be their top receiver, has a brain injury. So if you do not beat the Detroit Lions regardless, you're in trouble. But if you don't beat this particular Detroit Lions team, then you might as well shut the whole thing down and let's start talking Wild and, believe it or not, Timberwolves.
Well, we're going to get to Wild and Wolves later. We're not going to lead with them. And remember, this is still the easy part of the Vikings' schedule. They're 1-3, having just navigated the quote-unquote easy part of their schedule, which is why they're already behind the 8 ball. And the analytic that I like and that's troubling from last week, we saw Kirk Cousins jogging there.
The unvaccinated Kirk Cousins.
The unvaccinated Kirk Cousins.
Now that's back.
We're back on his vaccine
after last week's
status.
feeble offensive performance.
He probably needs to get loose because I think people are going to recognize that Kevin Stefanski, who knew him pretty well, said, we're going to make this guy run for his life the entire game. He was pressured, Dan, 55% of the time that he dropped back.
There you go.
Well, but I'm saying that's
you're handing him the excuse.
No, I'm saying everybody knows, the team knows that he can't be pressured. That no quarterback can, but especially he can't. Last week was a debacle of epic proportions because it was everybody's worst nightmare. It was the offensive line was a disaster again. They're trying to block Myles Garrett with Tyler Conklin. Good luck. That's not going to work.
I'll try it with Rashad Hill.
Well, that's a good point.
Better.
I guess when that's the alternative.
Yeah.
But it was just that was the blueprint. We saw 2 weeks ago the blueprint for how the Vikings can be successful, right? Get the ball out quick, let Cousins find his progression, spread it all over the place, have Dalvin run a little bit. Dalvin being hurt, not helpful. Offensive line being who they are, not helpful. And Cousins having to stand behind that, not going to work the rest of the way, right?
We found, we're just reminded again that and this is the rub, even if they dominate the Lions as they're supposed to. When they're playing better teams with good lines, especially good defensive lines,
they're in trouble.
They're in trouble because it's still a mediocre offensive line, and that's when Kirk Cousins gets exposed. We are reminded of his limitations. The Lions have been the great elixir.
Yes.
78, 39, and 2 is the Vikings' all-time record.
Did Denny ever lose to him?
Yes.
Oh, did he?
But rarely.
Rarely,
It stood out because it was rare.
Yep.
I think Bud's record was 26, 8, and 1.
Yep.
And I think our current, if we win, I think we won our last 7 in a row. Actually, Zim had trouble with the Lions early in his tenure, one of the few times. But this has been, you know how we talk about the way the Yankees think of the Twins?
Right.
The Vikings have historically thought of the Lions the same way as their punching bags, that they can just dominate and win. The problem continues to be that we don't, even if we do that, we still don't have enough evidence that, all right, where is this thing going? Because eventually you're going to have to not just play well and close against
the good teams,
because we're the best 1-3 team ever. You have to win your share of those games.
Enough
and
said.
Given the schedule that's coming up, that ain't going to be
easy. Helpful that Darisaw appears to be perhaps going to play at some point here. But at some point.
We're getting we're getting him into game shape.
He's at least on the field.
It's the longest, most arduous process I've ever heard.
Enough said.
At a position where we need immediate help.
You mentioned the Wild. 3 preseason games right here at home this week, and 3 wins. They beat Colorado on Monday, they beat the Blues in overtime on Wednesday, and they beat the Blackhawks in overtime on Thursday. So as the Wild's Twitter account says, Caps Locked is back. Justin.
Oh my gosh. By the way, the Wild.
You're going to have to explain about
what preseason
records.
Yeah. Well, I'm worried about what she's going to say about the Wolves now after their preseason deal. Billy Gaard, we've talked about him a lot. There's a video. Can't play the video on this Family Friday night show, but there's a video of him with the group. And he says, do you guys know what this is all about? Are you aware what this is all about? And he asked Jared Spurgeon, the captain, what's it about, Spurge? And he says, working hard and having fun. And immediately, I think it was a plant. I hope it was. Either way, it's great. Billy Guerin says, bleep that. It's about winning. I love him. This is a guy that would throw up if he tried to say the word collaboration. Would he not? Or alignment?
Yeah,
or any of the corporate buzzwords that we've ripped the Timberwolves for
Although
forever.
he believes in alignment, I think, but he doesn't feel like he's got to throw out these words all the time
he's
to
used
impress
the word,
people.
Exactly right, because he knows at the end of the day it's about winning. Now, he inherited a tough situation that he had to make a million different moves. To his credit, he has done that. Now he's got it's all.
He also inherited some decent talent.
He did.
Kaprizov, he didn't draft.
That's true.
Right? So you got to factor that in.
But now is the tough part, because it's the honeymoon period now. Obviously, I'm swooning over him at this point. But now he has the job that general managers have had before. We're hearing again about the young players we think are going to develop into something. Only time will tell on that. He's got to go find other pieces. Number one center. We've talked about that. But in terms of the here and now, I just love his approach. I just love his approach.
Well, it's interesting because I think part of what we have to decide is what will define success this year. I mean, clearly he's thinking longer term, even though he says it's about winning now, based on some of the moves that he has made. And so what a lot of people have said, well, maybe you had to do what you did with Parise. Probably shouldn't have done it with Suter yet, but you did. So the question is this a better team than last year? A lot of people think it's not as good a team.
Probably not.
So what are we going to be willing to accept? To me, you still should be required to make the postseason. Is it too much to ask that we actually win a playoff series or two this year? Or are we going to be told, now this has always been kind of the transitional year, and we're trying to put the pieces in place? Because I'm kind of tired of waiting.
Well, my answer would be
30 seconds.
Let's see what Fiala continues to do.
Yes.
Your superstars have to be great, right? Kaprizov and Fiala have to be good, but let's see some promising things from the young guys that aren't.
Well, in the defense, we're going to have to see some things from the defense, given who you lost.
They lost a bunch. I mean, they basically are. Suter obviously used to play half the game. They've lost a couple of other guys as well.
Enough said.
Let's see those guys show some signs and not just a good week here and a good week there. That to me would be a success.
I would just caution Lori. I mean, we've done this for years as it pertains to
the Vikings
preseason. Preseason records literally
don't mean anything.
Mean nothing. Zero.
Gotcha.
But I think she said that just to get us going.
I still think it's just fun and exciting, and it kind of gets you ready for the season.
Well, the games kind of do to an extent, but you're not
They're
playing the other
probably
team.
more affordable to go to as well.
Not really.
Oh.
That's all. I think that's all changed too.
Not
well,
really. Maybe. I'm not
sure. The Wolves won their preseason game.
Won. They dominated. You kidding?
Played a little defense.
117 to 114. They didn't make many changes with the team this year. So what are kind of your takeaways right now with the team, Dan?
Well, everybody, understands that where this team has to get not a little bit better, dramatically better, is guarding. And so they're all saying the right things, and they're all saying we're committed to it and we're going to get to it. The question I have is, and we know talk is cheap because we've been through this before. The question is, even if they mean it,
can they do it?
My concern is, do they have the players who are really capable, even if they're trying harder, to be capable defenders? And I think the answer is no. I don't think there's enough of them yet. And I guess the X factor will be Anthony Edwards is a great talent. Does he have it in him to be a good to very good defensive player? I don't know, because your best defensive players are fringe guys. Now, McDaniels isn't potentially, but then there's the concern of what you gain from him defensively, not going to work yet, playing him small forward next to Cat, that the feeling is he's not ready to be that guy yet. So if he can't be out there a lot, then who are you left with defensively? So my concern still is whether, no matter how much they drill it and work at it, are they capable of it, or are they just going to end up resorting to, we're going to try to outscore people because we do have a chance to have a pretty good offense?
Well, it would go back to me to expectations for what is a successful year this season. I don't think anybody has any illusions they're competing in the Western Conference, right? Unless they trade for Ben Simmons.
Well, when you say competing, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, like, they're going to be a top 4 seed and host a playoff series. Probably not, but if everything breaks right, could they compete for a playoff spot? Potentially.
Yeah.
Can they be a good enough defensive team to do that? Because clearly they can't be a good enough defensive team to do what I was talking about, be a top 4 seed. Unless, again, they trade for Ben Simmons, and that might change everything. Then they probably are competing that.
There's no question.
I still hope that they do that.
Too.
But expectation-wise, can they guard enough to get you into the conversation to make the playoffs. Because as sick as that sounds, they haven't been close to that the last couple of years.
No.
Even with Cat taking a step offensively, he's been in and out with injuries. Even with what we saw from Edwards last year, even what we saw from D'Lo down the stretch last year. I just want him to play good enough defense. I'm not going to be greedy to get into that conversation this year where playoffs is not an impossibility it's been.
But one of these years, what you do need is a big jump in victories, even if it won't get you to the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Sooner or later, surprise us. Do something that on paper doesn't really make any sense, because that's how you get the attention of your marketplace.
I just apologize to the team and staff and for being a distraction. It's stupid. And so I explained everything that happened and owned it, and just stupid. Should not have myself in that kind of position.
Welcome back to Enough Said. Jaguars head coach Urban Meyer says he's sorry for being a distraction this week. Video shows a woman, not his wife, dancing close to him. Others might call it something different at a bar last Friday night. The 57-year-old skipped the flight with the team after Thursday night's loss to hang out with his family. Ended up going out the next night. And then you saw what happened.
For a minute there, the light went.
I thought we were at Urban's Pine House.
I actually thought maybe it was trying to set. Lori was trying to set the mood. Yeah. But this is a little bit different kind of story.
Are we at Urban's Pine House right now?
The owner of the Jaguars says Meyer needs to regain the team's respect and trust. The Jaguars are 0-4, as we know, so none of this is a good look, Dan.
Can I ask you a question, Lori?
Maybe.
How would you describe what you saw?
I'm going to stick to my script.
Okay.
There you go.
Going to leave it at that.
Dancing and others would call it something differently, I think is what you said.
I think what hits me the most, more than anything about this, is even in his apology, there are certain coaches that have, one could say, they're all arrogant.
Yes.
But there's some that I think are on their own plateaus when it comes to arrogance, and I think he's one of those.
He is.
And so built into all this, given it's 2021, and who he is, regardless, quite frankly, whether they're 0 or 4-0, there's a certain arrogance to, I think I can get away with this. I mean, I was supposed to see the grandkids, but I'm here, I'm at the bar. Why not?
It's his own bar.
And what's really going to happen to me? It's sort of that arrogance, that air that he has built for himself, that I think is largely what's the most, where he is the most rippable on this particular issue.
Well, when you're a college coach and a legendary college coach, it's going to happen. You're going to be arrogant because you can do whatever you want, however you want. You run everything in your life. You have police escorts for you and your wife from the game just for you, right? You're going to think you're...
But there are limits, as we see.
And now he's not in Columbus anymore.
Well, that's also true.
He was in Columbus. Now he's not in Columbus anymore. People say, whether it was his wife, whether it was not, that to me, and you've talked about this on the radio, that's between him and his family. Things happen. Is it great?
Right.
No. But his team's in free fall. They're 0-4. He doesn't go back with them. Rather than go back and try to fix it.
He wanted to see the grandkids.
Who we still haven't seen yet.
Yeah, as far as we know,
I think Shelley, I think his wife did tweet out a picture of them with the grandkids.
Confirmed?
Who knows if that was from that trip.
That could have been photoshopped. You know how that works.
Of course. Well, it could have been a stock photo, a file photo from Christmas in 2017. We have no idea. And he wants to have a couple of pops in Columbus. And then the explanation, I mean, he looked like my 7-year-old apologizing. Or like you dragged him upstairs and said, you've got to apologize to your brother here. Then he throws his QB under the bus for going to a bachelor party in Vegas and saying, I told Lawrence he's got to be careful.
Got to grow up.
Got to grow up. Don't get caught in any compromised situations.
Let me ask you another question.
It's just too funny.
Let me ask you another question. I read, and this was new to me, but I read this
30.
Just about a half hour before we started today, that the company that the woman works for is, quote unquote, investigating her now. And
that's stupid.
And I said, for what?
That's stupid.
Why would there be any need for an investigation? Does she work for him? Is there some sort of issue where they work together and there's power issues going on there? What are you doing other than putting her in a position where, again, whatever we think of what was going on here,
no crime is committed.
A company is investigating her like they might fire her for what?
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Makes no sense to me.
That's ridiculous.
But anyway, that's the other tentacle of this thing that. And she's apparently getting threats.
It's the collateral damage.
Yeah, exactly. And imagine how many threats you'd be getting if Jacksonville was 4-0. I mean, imagine.
And you have to operate. There are cameras everywhere. If you are a name and people know who you are, you will be
Will you
on
grant
camera.
this point, Lori Fisher? I don't know if you will or not. But the one thing that bugs me about the story is we do love to lecture people about their relationships and what to do and what they shouldn't be doing, when all the statistics indicate that half of the people out there are doing the exact same thing.
Right.
They're just doing it where they're not necessarily going to have to worry about cameras being there. Why is that part of our deal, Lori?
I think it's because the Jaguars are 0-4, not 4-0.
No, you might be right.
That's what I think.
Glenn Mason told us that if he was coaching at Ohio State, he doesn't think the video would have ever
I don't think it will.
And
I agree. It would have protected him.
I agree with you.
His wife is getting hate mail as well, and so she's off Twitter now because she is
she's
just
had a rough
defending
go.
him.
Well, she's just
We
had
need
a
to
rough
move
go
on.
defending
We
him
could do a whole
forever.
show on this.
Okay,
We're
but
going to move on.
that's her. I'm not going to rip her for that's her choice. We don't know that what is involved in the relationship.
Again, I think
No.
it comes down to the team. Facebook.
And I'd still love to hear from the grandkids at some point.
Well, I think we all would.
Facebook whistleblower Frances Haugen testified in front of Congress this week. She says the social media site chooses profits before people. We're talking about Facebook. I'm not sure if you guys noticed too that Facebook and Instagram went down on Monday and people were
How could we not
losing
notice?
their minds.
Yes.
And maybe they went outside and enjoyed the fresh air, Justin.
I doubt it. No, they probably just hit refresh a million times. Or they went to Twitter, which was the one social media, I guess, device.
A refuge.
Yes.
Think about it. Think of Twitter as a refuge.
As a safe space.
Of relative sanity.
Oh, it was.
How
yeah,
scary is that?
I love how Lori says, I don't know if you noticed. It was impossible not to notice. It seemed like the world was ending. People wanted congressional investigations on this. But that goes to your larger point. Like, this is an illness that we all have when it comes to social media that once it goes down and people's lives for those hours were over, and that's why Facebook has us. That's why these social media companies have us. That's why they can be profits over people, as Lori mentioned, the whistleblower said. And the whistleblower's comment that stuck with me was, Mark makes metric-based decisions, and that in of itself, that's enough said to me, truthfully, is everything is done by the metrics. There is no nuance. It's black, it's white. Do we make money? Do we not? That's how they roll.
Well, somebody sent me an email trying to explain it and said that it should not fall on the consumer to protect themselves from an algorithm designed and developed by thousands of expert scientists and engineers to manipulate them.
Interesting.
I get that. There is, because there's something there's something ominous about you could say doubling and tripling and exponentially getting down on manipulating our own weaknesses and vulnerabilities. Again, that said, one of the things that I think somebody had, in the Wall Street Journal story, they'd mentioned a case of a woman who said she was seeing a therapist for eating disorder, and it all was because of Insta. At the age of 13, she started spending 3 hours a day scrolling pictures of what's described as chiseled bodies, perfect abs,
30.
and women
That's not good.
doing 100 burpees. Can I say burpees?
You can.
What is a burpee?
It's an exercise.
Okay, in 10 minutes.
You and I don't know what they are, but other people
There's
do.
a part of me that says, man, there's a personal component to this that in a free country and with all these temptations out there, you're going to have to take some responsibility for that. Nobody's going to be able to protect you from that if indeed that's the road you're going down. What could possibly go wrong
We need to wrap
if
it up.
you go to that extreme? And the other quick thing, Lori, I do not want, as the whistleblower suggested, a minister of misinformation in the government. That should scare people every bit as much as the manipulation that's going on here. And that's where I don't know where the middle ground is or where, the sweet spot of this thing is, but I'm not sure we're finding it right now. And that concerns me as much as the problem itself.
It'd be interesting to know if anyone actually got rid of their Facebook page on Monday.
That's the other great thing.
That. But I mean,
you are allowed to cancel your account.
You can live
correct?
your life. Yes.
You can cancel if you're that bitter at this seems to reveal. I know people are going to email me and say it's an addiction, and I get that.
It is.
But you are allowed to say, I'm out.
Okay.
You could do it.
Really quick, we have 1 minute. The Twins, just a quick wrap up on the Twins.
That's about enough. That's about what they're worth. Really.
They won their last game of the season, but they still came in last place, as we've been talking about for weeks. Just a quick wrap, 1 minute. Dan.
Well, just real quick, if I'm anybody associated with the Twins, including Josh Donaldson, a savvy veteran player, I don't whine one bit about weird double headers because of COVID issues and having to travel an extra 6 or 7 hours in a first-class airplane where I'm eating beluga caviar. And that's one of the things that was in the newspaper. And it's like, just own up. We were bad. We got major issues. We're going to try to address them. Don't go down any other road. And keep in mind, we both know it. It's pitching, 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 5 deep. That's the issue. Your first 5 priorities should be pitching.
I'd say your first 3 and then throw Buxton in there.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
I
thought pitching,
Yeah.
Buxton, wherever you want to go there. But that's what Donaldson was doing a lot of complaining about some of the things that they had to do. But he made a good point.
He did.
That if we don't have a couple new pitchers here, I think the way he phrased it was it would be a missed opportunity. That's a very kind way of saying.
He deadpanned it nicely. He didn't scream.
No,
but he's right.
But he allows other people to scream for him, which is good. Throw
That's
it out
us.
there. It's like
That's what I'm doing.
The players notice who we're playing behind.
Welcome back to Enough Said. It's lightning round time. First up, 18 former NBA players are charged in a $4 million insurance fraud case. The defendants allegedly would submit medical and dental claims to the league's health and welfare benefit plan. That never happened. If convicted, they could face up to 20 years in prison, Dan.
Well, the lesson is if you're going to put in a bill for like $50,000 from your dentist that you go to in Beverly Hills, don't actually be in Taiwan playing in another league at the time that you allegedly had the procedures done. Not real bright.
I know this sounds sick.
Yeah.
Because the fraud is what we should be focusing on.
You're more bothered by
the sloppiness.
Yes.
Next up.
If you're going to cheat, cheat with some intelligence.
A little bit.
A lot of people involved too. Former Timberwolf and current Warrior Andrew Wiggins ended up getting the COVID-19 vaccine. We know that he was standing firm until he was told if he missed games, he wouldn't be paid, Justin.
Well, yeah, that's it. I mean,
he admitted it.
Yeah,
he got bought off.
Which I don't blame him for. I mean, obviously, you'd like everybody to get the vaccine on their own. We did the cheap shot about a high percentage shot for Wiggins a couple of weeks ago, but we've talked about this with a lot of businesses. When companies say, okay, you want to have your principles, you're not going to be able to work here, a lot of people say, okay. I mean, that is the
I still don't want him on my team.
No. Vaccinated or no.
It doesn't matter to me.
No.
The Gopher football team.
What if he's brilliant post-vaccination?
Well, who's to say?
What if the COVID-19 vaccine
changes everything?
A little extra juice?
The Gophers beat Purdue 20-13. They're on a bye week with a 3-2 record. They play Nebraska on the 16th here at home, Justin.
Yeah, I would say the story of the Gophers this week is Trey Potts still in Indiana as of Thursday night, which is scary. It was a scary situation, obviously, in West Lafayette that he had to be hospitalized and that he's still there with an unknown ailment. The team is going to be what
it's
the team
known.
is
We
going to
just
be.
don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, we don't know exactly what it is. But, yeah, a win in a monsoon, you need it. Nebraska's playing better. They've got Michigan this weekend.
Next up.
But it's all about Trey Potts.
The man with a familiar voice has passed away. Alan Coulter, also known as Big Red, the announcer who used to introduce David Letterman. He was 78 years old. Also, he used to announce for the $25,000 Pyramid. I love that show, Dan.
He is, you know, again, the brilliance for me of Letterman's show eventually wasn't just him, it was the characters built around it.
No question.
Adding a little piece here, subtracting something there, and he was one of those pieces that just, I mean, the voice is brilliant.
Yep.
But then what they did to play off of it and to go from authentic to smarmy was a stroke of brilliance, and they, to their credit, they identified it, and he ran with it.
And finally,
Dr. Dan's Inbox, we played the theme song for the letters, and that was my favorite thing.
That's it, yes.
Letter number 1.
Yes.
And then Alan would go do his thing. It was as good as it gets.
It's a big weekend for Upper Midwest Emmys. Enough
it's
said
huge.
is up for one.
Look at the
Fox
head.
9 for a bunch of them.
This is a
We are
mistake.
up for best interview and discussion.
Oh, no.
What are our chances?
Well, in all
Doesn't look
honesty,
good.
the mistake we're making here is we keep
Bringing
building
it up.
this thing up. And
Jinxing ourselves?
We're going to be transparent.
Well, we're going to. That's the thing. Are we going to rip ourselves if we don't win again?
We've
Because
done-
if we run from it, then we're going to get ripped as frauds.
we
that
won't.
we're only going to trumpet it if we actually win after the fact.
You'll just have to stay tuned to our Twitter accounts, right, Justin?
Well, we've criticized ourselves the last
Will
2
we
years.
call for changes?
In the show?
We certainly call for it when it comes to coaches.
That's true.
Enough said
When
on
they're
that
0-3.
one.